To remove this contraption they call a valve on each side, the first thing you want to do is raise the roof just slightly so the flap here is up like that, so you can actually move it up and down because it's spring-loaded in the up position. On the top of it there's just a plastic cover trim piece with 4 clips. You can just get a plastic tool and pop those off. And then what you want to do is this Bowden cable here is going to be slotted into that position there. You need to have it in the up position so you can actually get your hand underneath it. The roof also needs to be maybe about 1/4 of the way up. You'll need to sort of play with it a little bit to get into the right position. So this can get all the way up, but then the other bits of the roof aren't actually in the way. And then you want to pull out the little thing at the top of the Bowden cable which slots into there. Now beware, don't just grab it at the bottom and pull it out, because the top bit is actually really jammed in the top there and it'll actually break the top of it. So actually grab your finger around the actual Bowden cable, the actual cable itself, and pull it out from the top. So you'll be actually sort of doing that, if you like, and that'll pull it out and stop that thing from breaking. Once that's out, then you can move that up. You can lower this down a little bit and then just release it from the slot here where that Bowden cable goes. Then you might need to move the roof again because there's a screw just there which goes into that position there. And you want to be able to get the roof in a position where you can actually get a little Torx screwdriver in there and actually remove that, because it's a bit of a fiddly spot. And once you get that out, then this can be moved up. This bit here, and a lot of this is sort of in the way of the roof, so again you might need to move the roof again just a little bit so you can get this out, and just because it's sort of slotted all around this metal piece here. There's a lug here and a lug on the other side that slot into those 2 pieces here, so that sort of slides down, so the roof needs to be in sort of quite a particular position to be able to get that in and out. These rear seals are actually quite difficult to install, especially. Okay, so a bit of information about what's actually happening. Behind here there are 3 screw holes which go into the 3 positions here. The thing is to actually get access to those so you can actually install them. The actual rubber seal needs to be sort of most of the way off. At the top here when you're removing it, there's a little silver tab in there which actually goes into a hole under there. So if you actually just pull it towards the outside and rotate it, then the seal will actually come off that. Like, it's probably easiest to have it like that. That actually rotates so it actually can come off. And the seals themselves, there's all these little tabs around each side. So what you're going to do is actually have it, it'll be separated like that because you have to need to put that in there, put the 3 screws in so they're in the right spot, and then you actually have to use a tool and push these into place, which is actually quite difficult, especially when you haven't had a bit of a practice, as I've found. To get these rear seals on, I've made a tool. It's just an old knife which I've sanded at 90 degrees and then sanded it all so it's nice and smooth, and then put it on the buffing wheel so it's nice and polished, so it's not going to cut the rubber. And the reason I've done that is getting these seals on the rear seals is actually pretty hard to get it done right, and without a tool it's going to help you. It's going to be a pretty difficult job. So when you're putting these on, you want to get the one that's on the inside here, so that would actually be sitting in the car like that. Lift those up and sort of slot, and have a good look at it before you start this, that lump of rubber that goes into those slots there. And then on this side, what you're going to do, because the actual canvas of the roof is going to be sort of hard up against this, so you have to pull that back to see it, but then you want to find these tabs here, and then I'm going to get that and push that under each one of these. Now it must be in the slot at the back so I can actually push against it, otherwise it won't go in. But with a tool like this, that's going to make it a little bit easier. Removing and adjusting these seals in the center is pretty simple. Just stick your thumb under there, and there are 3 T30 Torx screws. The nice thing about them is they actually stay with it, so they're sort of stuck inside the seal when you remove them so they don't fall out. Makes it really easy to install. in between the frame here and the seal at the back, there was a shim washer, so just grab that on the way out and make sure you reinstall that. But they're pretty simple, just to tighten those up and then just back them off a bit. So when you're installing, so now they're easily adjustable, and then you can lower the roof down and put them in the correct position. I find the easiest way to adjust these so they're right is to lower the roof, or actually like raise it, but until it's got about 1 centimetre to go, so it's not fully closed, and then it's actually a little bit easier to move these around, and then you can push these up into the correct position and tighten them up. The front seal is similar to the rear, pretty simple to get off. The only difference is there are 2 screws instead of 3, like on the center seal, and at the front you've got a flap which is all part of the seal, which actually covers that strip of metal that actually goes across the front that actually holds the liner and the canvas to the roof. So you remove those, and to actually adjust those, basically put the roof down and then basically push it all the way forward and then tighten them from there. To show you how the liner is connected and what you need to do to remove it, I've just got the liner, it looks like it's upside down, but that's actually how it's going to be mounted in the car. The first thing you want to do is, before you even start, is remove the rollover protection. I'll put up some information on how to do that, because there is one particular rivet all the way back here that needs to be drilled out, connected to an arm back here, that is really, really difficult unless that rollover protection is actually removed. So once you've got the rollover protection removed, put the roof into service mode, so it's sticking up like this at the back, and then what you're going to do is come in and remove 2 expansion rivets back here. They are T30 Torx like this, so they just screw in, and they actually sit in a position that's like that, so it's really hard to actually get access to them. I found that when I was removing these just like that, and they just spun in the hole rather than actually loosening off, which is a bit of a pain. And I eventually just got an expansion rivet removal tool and just levered those out, and that was all fine. Once you do that on the arm at the back here, there's that point with the clip that's connected to the wire for the demister for the windows. You're just going to remove that connection point there. There's a Velcro here that you're just going to pull off, which is pretty simple, and that's all you need to remove in service mode. Once you have removed that, you can put the roof back into service, like normal down position. I would actually have the roof up, like at the front here, in that position that would normally be in service position, so it's about halfway retracted, which makes everything nice and loose on the inside. And then you can jump on the inside, and the things that you want to remove are, there's this plastic piece at the top here, which is actually just a slot here, which just pushes straight into it, the top of the window, that just pulls straight out. There are 2 zippers here, which are connected to the canvas, and all you do is just pull those apart and then unzip them across. The difficult rivet to remove is the one for this here, which is connected to an arm back there. And the only way I found that I could actually drill that out was to have the roof fully down, so connected to the windshield, with the rollover protection removed, and then you can actually get access to drilling these things out. And then once you've drilled that out, then I'll put the roof back into that position that you had it before, so it's about halfway retracted, to remove everything else. You'll need to remove the seal here, and the way to remove that, but with this seal out, then what you're going to see is this thing is connected to the rail here, and there are 2 rivets. You'll need to drill those 2 out. At the back here, and that's actually connected to the rail here, there's a plug, this one here, that there is going to be in, that knob is going to be engaged into that plug, and that thing pushes rearwards to actually install. And to get it out, there's just a little slot in there. You get a small screwdriver and you just lever it out. It takes a little bit of force, but that just pops straight out. Then coming rearward, there's another connection point here, that needs to be riveted out, or that rivet needs to be drilled out. And then this one here, what this does is when the roof opens and closes, when it actually goes down, there's a couple of hoops here where this cord actually goes through to then expand it out and actually pulls this thing nice and tight. And then when everything opens up, or when the roof opens, everything sort of collapses together, which allows us to go loose and everything to fold nicely. That's actually riveted into place just there. It goes through this little clip which is connected to that rivet there, so it'll be through that actually as that comes back. So you're just going to pull it out because there's actually a little spot there where that actually allows that to open and allows the cord to pull out. And then once you do that, and this is drilled out, then you can just pull it through the two little loops. There's one on the center seal and one on the actual rail where this actually does a lap. And then they can just come out like that. I've actually made new ones because the old was starting to wear, so I just cut these off and then just made new ones. At the front, there is a screw on this little spring, okay, which you need to remove. And then that whole side there is now loose. And at the front, you've got the big metal rail that sits all the way along the front, which actually holds the canvas as well as the liner in place. There are 6 screws. There's a smaller one right on the end, plus 2 further on the inside. To get access to those, you'll need to remove the cover that goes over the top of the lock. And then once you remove that, remember the roof is going to be back here where everything's nice and loose, you remove those 6 screws, then that rail just pops down. This little thing here is going to be clipped into that rail, so then they just pull straight off, and then those big lugs that go into the windshield, these things here just slot onto that, so you can just pull those off really easily. And then the whole thing is just going to be hanging down like this by this piece of piping here, and there's a rail that's actually part of the canvas which has 5 T30 Torx screws. Pretty obvious when you see it. All you're going to do is remove those, and that allows that thing that holds onto that piping to just flop straight down an inch or 2, and then once that happens you can grab hold of this and just slide the whole thing out. On the underside of the seal here, and it's pretty easy to access when that thing is all the way back, there are 2 connection points that are just use those T30 expansion rivets, so you can just disconnect those, pull those out, and then that'll come free. Once you've removed everything at the front and also the back, so it's going to be hanging from that piece of piping. There are 5 screws along here. In fact, the workshop manual actually talks about removing all 5 of these and having this thing lower down, but you can easily just remove one and then just pull it out like that. And obviously the installation is the reverse of that. To remove the cover strip along here, there are 6 screws, 3 on each side. There are 2, they're all T30 Torx. There are 2 long ones on each side that go in there, and there's a smaller one in the corner. Once you've done that, at each edge there is a sleeve which this little knob at the end of it will actually just pop straight out of. And then once they're out, that'll just lower straight down, and you can see the actual lining here is just clipped into that cover strip. So that just now pops off and will just come off and allow that whole thing to come free. To remove the cover for the lock, the first thing you want to do is you actually need to pull these bits here forward. There are 2 lugs on the inside, one there and one there, which will go into those slots there. So you actually need to get a plastic pry tool and reef these things forward, and then you'll need to rotate that up, because then at the back you've got this slot here which goes over a lug at the back. So you need to pull it up, it's quite a bit of force, and then move it rearward so that can actually come off.